You seem to have relentless hustle. 100-mile marathons. Your shins are breaking. You're duct taping your shoes together. How much of your will was forged by you living with David Goggins?
You don't know me, son!
I just wanted some of whatever he had, so I asked him to come stay with my family and I. My biggest takeaway from it was,
What's it like owning a sports team?
so fun.
But does it ever...
No. Whatever you're gonna say, no, it never gets old.
Your wife, founder of Spanx,
Selling it for north of $1 billion.
for lack of better verbiage, it's not like a measuring contest.
No. My wife is way more successful than me. Both my parents passed away recently. Halfway through going through 3,000 books, my brother calls me, he's like, we have a situation. I'm like, what? It wasn't a book, it was hollow, it was a
Oh my God.
You know, I lived on a monastery with 8 monks that had been there for 50 years.
How did an average day there compare to an average day with Goggins?
Very different. Working with this kid, Curtis, who was a boxer. He wanted to learn some business and interned for a year and a half, helped me write songs for theme songs, and then he became 50 Cent.
Wow.
So when I had this company called Marquis Jet, we flew the who's who of pop culture at the time. The best athletes, the best entrepreneurs, the best CEOs. I was obsessed with their habits. The one thing that completely changed the trajectory of my life was
You playing fantasy?
I was playing. Yeah, I've been in the same fantasy league for.
No way. You guys have cash prizes, I bet.
We do. I have a crazy league.
How much cash prize?
I don't want to tell you.
Come on.
I don't want to tell you. It's legit.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like, come on, Jesse. How much you guys playing for in fantasy? Like an amount that's kind of illegal?
I mean, I'd assume so.
Who's in it? Who's in it?
It's a killer league, man. In it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How do you guys draft?
We have a ping pong ball system, and then to pick the order, and then we draft at someone's house every year. We rotate it.
You guys all go to the same.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, that's gotta be.
I think this is
sick.
like year 16 or 17.
No way.
Check.
I lost in the championship this year. So you're bringing up a sore spot.
You lost in the championship?
Yeah.
Tough. Are we rolling, by the way? And we have been rolling? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I stopped playing fantasy because I was like a bit of a time suck. Like I'd watch the games and I'd be like betting on the players, hoping they do well, and I just get frustrated when they wouldn't. And then when they would, it's like now I'm just glued.
Have you tried regular gambling instead? Like more casino based?
Yeah, he's an addict, and his addiction went from drugs to now.
Yeah, he's not lying.
Do you gamble a lot?
I love gambling.
Still?
It makes me very happy.
Yeah. It's dangerous, man.
No, I don't gamble. I do sports betting. Yeah, I don't.
That's not gambling.
It's skill.
That's investing.
It's skill based. Mr. Itzler, it's skill.
Okay, you're right.
Hey,
Jesse, you use headphones?
You want me to, I can if you guys want me to.
It's
I'm
only
sounding
on
a
you.
little hollow too.
Yeah, I'll throw some headphones on.
Can I get the volume up a little bit?
They're right. They're right behind you.
Awesome. Cool.
Well, how are yours?
Mine are really good.
Your sound is good.
Yeah, my sound.
It's my voice too. That's not check.
Oh, here we go.
Oh,
Check.
It's a whole different world here.
Yeah.
It's cool, right?
Yes,
Perfect.
it's nice, man.
You're no stranger to the studio.
No, I love it. I love a good headphone. Yeah,
Volume's good.
perfect.
Let's run it. Have you been on Joe Rogan?
I have
Man, you've done everything, Jesse.
a while ago.
What an honor to have you on our podcast in your own house.
I feel the same way, man. Welcome. Thanks for inviting yourselves.
Yeah. yeah. What a beautiful place.
Stunning.
Yeah, Atlanta. Wow. Hot Atlanta.
Yes.
They were telling me it was, I said it's hot Atlanta because it's so hot and the
not
sun
why
was beating
it's-
on my skin and he's telling me it's not called, that's not why it's
That's
called
not why
hot.
it's called that. It's 47 degrees out. It's gonna snow today.
But
If he doesn't close his door, I'm gonna get frostbite. My arm's gonna fall off. Hotlanta. It's called Hotlanta because of the women at Magic City, the exotic dancers, we'll call them on the show, as well as the overall vibes are hot here. It's just a hot place.
I like both those reasons.
Well, unfortunately, you are going to have to pick one.
Yeah. Well, I'm a New Yorker, so I've been here for like 11 years. So, I wasn't part of the process of, I fell into Hotlanta.
Yeah.
But I think it's a combo. I would say it's mostly weather, but equally, good looking women and the vibes. So I think you guys nailed it.
So Jesse, man, you're a lot of things. A multi-hyphenate to say the least. And I feel like I relate to you. And I'm one of the people who like religiously follows your posts on Instagram because I love that you were a creative first. You were this rapper. You created the theme song for the New York Knicks, among other bangers. College Girls Are Easy, for example. Listen to that one this morning. Wow. And then you networked, you hustled, you became this ultra successful businessman, and now family man. Your wife, founder of Spanx, multi-billion-dollar company. Like,
well, let's get that figure correct too,
How-
because
how-
you
what's-
did
how much is-
subtract a 800 million earlier, and she's going to feel extremely disrespected
no,
by what you said.
how much is Spanx valued at?
She sold the majority share for $1.2 billion. So that was a couple of years ago, though. So
Respect to her.
While we're on that topic, do you want to hear a funny crossover
yeah,
situation here?
yeah.
So I met Logan through a company called Lovesac, through a man by the name of Sean Nelson.
By the way, Sean Nelson is a nasty wakeboarder.
Oh, he's really good. I didn't know where you're gonna
Insane.
I didn't know where you're gonna go with that.
Insane.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
But the funny for the audience and for you, right? Like, he won Rebel Billionaire
Mhm.
on the season that Sarah took second.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So they were on the show with
Whoa.
Richard
Yeah,
Branson.
they're good friends.
And they're friends still,
Great
right?
friends.
And she obviously, I think Branson gave her
Yes.
$750, right? And
Yeah.
Sean got $1 million.
Yeah.
And then Lovesac's successful, but Spanx is like uber.
Yeah. So that was a show that Branson had that was like his version of The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Where he had these
Sick.
entrepreneurs on and they had to do like
Crazy shit.
craziest shit.
Go down the side of a building.
Insane. And the two finalists were Sean and my wife.
That's actually crazy.
Yeah. And
Whoa.
he won. And then, but it was so close that Richard helped fund some of Sarah's foundation stuff, which is really cool.
Sean entered for the beanbags, and he won.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. At the time, it was just Saks.
Yeah,
It was prior
exactly.
to Saks.
Oh,
shows.
okay.
Yeah. That's wild. Good,
Yeah.
really good guy.
Crazy.
I love that
crossover.
you guys are here, man.
It's
I love
really
that you
cool.
guys are
dude.
here.
No, there's a lot to learn from you. You were in Puerto Rico. You have a house there, and we got dinner.
Yeah.
and that was cool. And it was so cool to just sit with you and your family and ask you questions about how to raise like successful kids.
Yep.
Coming from a successful household.
Mhm.
And man, I just think there's so much. You're one of those people that so much knowledge to pull from you. So that's what I want to try to do this podcast.
Let's do it.
Number one, I want to ask you just about your mindset in general. Because the first conversation we had, it was when my brother was fighting Ben Askren here in Atlanta. And someone's like, yeah, this guy runs like really far. And I was like, how far could he really be running? And so I asked you, I was like, how far do you run, man? You go, far. I said, give me a number. You're like, it's really far. And then I find out you're running like 100-mile triple marathons in 24 hours. Like your shins are breaking, you're duct taping your shoes together. And you seem to have this just relentless hustle. Is that because you're from New York?
Listen, I think growing up in New York was a huge plus for me. You know, it was a gift that I had nothing to do with, where I was raised, when I was raised, coming up in the 80s, like different era, pre-technology, go outside all the time. And I was raised, and who I was raised by was the biggest factor. My dad owned the plumbing supply house, worked 6.5 days a week, you know, but showed up for everything. And my parents gave me a really long leash and allowed me to try a lot of things as a kid, and were just super encouraging. And I had nothing to do with that. But I'll share a crazy thing with you guys, man, just to talk about that mindset. Last year, I was on Instagram, and I saw a post that said, these are 50 books everybody in the world should read. So I was like, man, I'm ordering all 50 of those books. I'm gonna be fucking Jason Bourne. I'm gonna read every book. I'm gonna know everything. I order all 50 books. Amazon's coming every day, 10 books, 5 books, 4 books. And this year, at the end of the year, I'm taking inventory on my goals from last year. Of the 50 books, I read 0. But I read 1 book last year. I'll share with you. Give me 30 seconds. So it's this story. It's a true story. It's the story of a family from Russia, true story, 120 years ago. And they were so poor that of the 12 kids that were born, 6 died before the age of 2 because they had no money to like medically. So 6 kids of the 12 survived. The dad moves to the States and sends 1 for the 6 kids to come. The youngest kid, the last one to come, gets lice before he can get on the boat. They don't let him on. They tar his head. They burn his friggin' scalp to get rid of it. He finally heals, bruised, comes over, gets enlisted into the U.S. Army for World War I. In fighting in action, he gets mustard gassed. He's missing in action. They find him in a hospital, give him a medical discharge, and he comes back to this country, meets a woman marries her and has 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. The boy is my dad.
No way.
Oh my God.
No way.
I'm one generation removed from my grandfather who came across, got tarred, went through all this stuff. So when like you talk about like running, doing stuff like that, I just go back to what my family went through, and it's like nothing, man. It's like, you know, so it's very important for me to have something that like, you know, yes, you're in this house and there's all this stuff. It's amazing. But, you know, it started with a family in you know, that came overseas. So it's just a wild story, man. I read that book last year.
And knowing that.
Not knowing. I found the book in when my parents died.
No. Sorry.
Yes.
You read this book not knowing.
My grandfather wrote that book in 1974 about his life. I had no idea of the entire history of it.
Sorry, how did you come across the book?
In the most insane way you could ever imagine.
Bro, this is serendipitous.
Can I tell another 30-second story?
It's your show.
So both my parents passed away recently, fairly recently. And when, you know, you guys are fortunate, both your parents are alive, yours. Yep. So when your parents die, and, you know, I had my parents' house, my sister and my brother and I decided we were going to sell their house. There's 90 years of belongings in the house. There's everything that they've collected. There's silverware, there's mirrors, there's couches, there's everything has to go because you sold the house. So there's 90 years of possession. So what happens is you bring in an estate guy and he's like, do you want to keep this or donate it or sell it? Okay, sell it. I'll give you $100 for it. Donate it goes here. Get rid of it goes here. They go through the whole house. They get all the way down to the books. You guys won't fucking believe this, man. You won't believe this. My mom has 3,000 books. I'm in Atlanta. They're doing this in Florida. Halfway through going through 3,000 books because they're marking each one $2 a dollar. My brother calls me, he's like, we have a situation. I'm like, what? He's like, the guy with the books just handed me a book, but the mom had, but in the middle of the book, it wasn't a book, it was hollow, it was a safe. This is a swear to God story.
Oh, man.
It's a safe. It's a hollow book. I'm like, well, what's in it? He goes, well, there's old credit cards from 30 years ago, there's some cash, and there's a note. I go, well, what does the note say? It says, this is a combination to a safe. Here's the address. If anything happens to me, get all the contents out of it. You're the only one that has this note. I'm like, my brother's like, I think mom left us Apple stock at $1. Like we're freaking out.
Bitcoin.
I go, what's the address on the envelope? So he gives me the address. It's my summer home in Connecticut, a home I've had for 30 years. I'm happen to be going that coming weekend for Labor Day or whatever. I open up the safe, and in the safe is some miscellaneous things and this book.
Oh my God.
Is that insane?
Oh my God.
That's insane.
Insane.
Any directions or inferred directions of what you were supposed to do with this book?
It was just this autobiography. I mean, there's other stuff in the safe, but it was this autobiography that my dad or my mom wanted to make sure that, you know, we had
Continued
or whatever.
being passed on.
And the first line of it is, you know, my grandfather wrote it. He's like, it says, I wrote this autobiography for no monetary gain. It's for generations to come, so they know our story. And I love that, you know, because we always think about everything about money.
Business.
And like, nah, man, he wrote this. I'm going to give you guys like the history of how I came up and my whole journey. And it's 54 pages.
And I'm assuming it's a one of one.
It's a one-on-one.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Is it written in?
It's typed.
Is it typed in?
Typed. It must have took him a fucking year to type it.
Is it in English, Russian, Hebrew?
English.
Got it.
Yeah.
That is
Would you ever
insane.
publish it?
No, because he didn't want him.
I don't know. It's like, it's filled with life lessons. Like, it's fucking nutso. It's filled with these subtle life lessons. It's wild.
So, I mean, Jesse, it's in your blood, you know, partially.
Yeah. I mean, it just, I'm always reminded of that, you know. My dad was had a really interesting life too. Grew up in Brooklyn, you know. But what I love about the ultra running is I'm not a great athlete. I like playing sports. I'm competitive, but I went to watch a 100-mile run years ago. Like when endurance running first started, I went to like one of the first ultra runs ever. And I'm looking at the people finishing the race, and they didn't look like they were insanely fit. You know, you would think like a guy's gonna run 100 miles. He looks like,
Yep.
you know, Goggins or this. But like most of the people that were finishing it were like, they weren't really athletic looking or even that strong. What I realized was what they did have was will. And I'm like, man, I want to compete in this. It takes away speed and it's just about will. Let me test my will. And that's how I got into the sport.
How much of your will was forged by you living with David Goggins?
You know, that was an amazing chapter of my life. I was already like in my 40s at the time. So I'd already gone through, you know, businesses that work, businesses that fail.
Yeah.
But I learned so much from, they always say like surround yourself with like-minded people. And I'm the opposite. I like to surround myself with people that I'm not like-minded, but have superpowers. Like, you know, I lived on a monastery with 8 monks that had been there for 50 years because I wanted to get, you know, again, part of being an entrepreneur is figuring out how to get from A to B the fastest. You're in that game with Prime. You've been in that game, you know, your whole life. Like, how do we speed up the process, you know? And I was the same way with my spirituality, man. I'm like, I've invested so much in fitness, but like my spiritual side is like, it needs some work. Who are the masters? Monks. I'm gonna go live with them.
Where'd you go?
I went just south of Canada to a little monastery called New Skeet.
How long?
I was there for 17 days.
Turned everything off. No phone.
Yeah,
no.
everything off. It was really interesting.
What was it? What did an average day look like? How did an average day there compare to an average day with Goggins?
Very different. You know, the Goggins thing was like, I was in a rut and I wanted to break out of it like mentally. And first of all, at the time that I met Goggins, no one, you know, he wasn't on, there was no social. He was still in the military. And I just wanted some of whatever he had. I saw him run a 100-mile race. That's how we met. I wanted whatever he had, the secret sauce that made a guy like that, he was big at the time. I wanted that to rub off on me. So I asked him to come, you know, stay with my family and I. And I got so much out of that. The monks thing was like completely different because I was shut down from the world. Like if there was, like, I wouldn't know if COVID happened, if there was an invasion, if there was, you know, anything. So that freaked me out.
Yeah.
And I started thinking like, what if I come home and my kids don't like me? You know, like you start to get these insane thoughts. But what my biggest takeaway from it was my relationship with time. And, you know, when we think about relationships in terms of people, how your relationship with your brother, your parents, you know, but we don't really think about our relationship with money, which is really important, and our relationship with time, which is equally as important. Because being time rich, I'm very time rich right now. And that's like amazing.
You mean freedom of
freedom, like time rich, like I can spend time with my kids.
Running.
I could go for a run. I could make my own schedule. I just had 10 friends meet me in Clearwater. I'm taking 12 friends to Finland to a sauna tour this month. Like,
I want to talk about that after.
Yeah, but that's, you know, really important. So that your relationship with time.
And it's funny because you say money too. There's a very direct correlation between the two of them.
Very, very. So, so I mean, that was a big takeaway for me, is like how I viewed time at the monastery.
I want to let you keep going, but you've obviously been so good at time management, and you have one of your big ass calendars actually in the background.
Yeah.
Sitting over there.
Oh yeah.
So when I told my brother I was going to dinner with you, and I was like, you got to look this guy up on Instagram. He had already ordered a big ass calendar and didn't even know that you were the guy who made it.
It's insane, man. I saw it in the doc.
Yeah.
I freaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I love it.
He's super regimented like you are with time. And it sounds like this was a manifestation, or at least a creation from that learning.
100%. Like 100%. It just, you guys will see, man. How old are you?
29.
How old are you?
40.
So you'll see as you get older, like there's a big difference in where you guys are on your journey, by the way, you know, and it'll really hit 10 years from now when you're 40 and you're 50. It's like, you know, 50, you're 20 away from 70, everything flips mentally. But it's hard to create newness, man, you know, especially now with the newborn and, you know, like your routine changes and like, where does newness come from?
Well, and when you're, the hard thing that I've always thought about it too is when you're successful, it breeds comfort, and comfort is such a disastrous thing. Like, it's like, you know, you think back to times, like I think back to times as an addict or whenever, you know, living on the streets, whatever. And think about how welcome the idea of comfort was your whole life. You're like, oh, someday I'll have this house and I'll be able to just coast, and I'll be comfortable. And now, like, I try to fight comfort off as much as possible because it's so, it's the antithesis of evolution for the human spirit and human condition. Like it's an enemy a lot of times.
In many ways, yeah.
I'm super fascinated by your ability to keep thriving and conquering, or whatever word you want to use, that fuels your drive, given that you do like kind of have, everything anyone could ever ask for. And I felt it in my own life. You get comfortable, it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm good. I want to maybe take a break for a sec.
For me, it's pretty simple. I mean, like, again, I lost both my parents, so like I've seen a different side of human life lately that I didn't see. But listen, man, this goes for, I'm sure, all of us. We don't want to be at the end of the journey and be like, yes, I was the 80% version of myself. Like, I don't want to be a B-. So even though you get a win at 29, at 40, I sold my first company when I was 27, had some wins, had some egg on my face, and now I'm 56. Like, I don't want to, I feel like I have so much more in me. You know what I mean? So I don't want to like have regrets that I didn't run that race.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. By the way, you guys might see my Jesse cup. I see you're looking at my wife made everybody in my family get cups with their names on so we know who leaves shit like when they should be. Right. So this is the Jesse cup. So this is what you guys have to look forward to.
I love what you're saying about the 80% and thinking about that. The curiosity for me sometimes is not how I'm doing in the race, but what race am I running? Like, it's like it's such a subjective thing. We talk about business. For me, I think I like to travel. I like to experience things. And then I oftentimes wonder about what am I neglecting in order to do everything in that realm? So how have you been able to balance all of the things, the business, the family, the personal pursuits, the marathons, all of that?
These are good questions, man. So for me, what I do is I like to put things in buckets. This works really well for me. So for example, and I do it annually. So for example, I have an adventure bucket. Like we talk about being time rich. I want to be adventure rich. There's certain buckets I want to be rich in, socially, friends, health, So I have the different buckets. I have 8, and you make the buckets that are important to you. And I write down like what I want to accomplish in each of those buckets each year. And then I backtrack it in. But it's really important. Everyone has different definitions of success. And that's a really good place to start. Like, what's your definition of success? For some people, it's like, oh man, I want to be a millionaire before I'm 28, or I want to do this or whatever. But to me, one of my definitions is being the best that I can be in the buckets that matter the most. So for me, like family, really important to me. Business, really important to me. Friends, really, you pick those buckets and then you say like, that's really one. And then by the way, it also, by doing that, it gives you permission to say no. Like, Logan, your biggest enemy right now, I mean, I don't know you that well, but I know like you have a lot of ideas in your top desk drawer that you have a lot of opportunities now. And you too, man, the biggest distraction for young entrepreneurs is distraction. That's the biggest enemy. It's distraction. It's like saying yes to too many things and, spreading your time out all over the place instead of focusing on the things that move the needle the most.
It's so funny you say that because I'm like
am I right?
I'm in the midst of this like kind of exact conversation. Like at the moment, dude, I'm filled with ideas, and I'm sure you were at 29. You probably had a similar feeling. Like I do feel like I have the bandwidth. Do I not?
I think you have the bandwidth if you hire great, if you hire your weaknesses and build around it.
I'm not a great hirer.
But it's not even that, man. Even with it, when you have multiple things going on, let's say that, I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be having different businesses. I'm just saying distractions come in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And they come from people requesting time.
Yeah.
Let me give you a simple example. There's something called, so let's say someone says, oh, look, I mean, and it's hard for me to say this because a lot of people, when I was coming up, gave me time. Yeah. So I try to give my time as well, but it's different now because you're getting bombarded with requests from DM, text, emails. Like when I was growing, You had to like find me if you wanted to like, you know what I mean? Like you had to like fucking find me somewhere. If I wanted a meeting, I'd stand in front of someone's office until they walked out and be like, walk with them to the elevator. That was my meet. Like it was hard.
Yeah.
Now there's this, you're getting bombarded, you know, for your time and stuff like this. What was I saying? What was I talking about?
I think you're giving me some very specific life advice.
How to say no, to
essentially.
distractions. And,
Oh yeah. So someone says to you, Logan, you know, like, hey man, can I get 15 minutes of your time? And like, you don't want to be a jerk, you know? So like, sometimes you'll just be like, yes. And then you'll have a meeting with them or whatever. And I'm not saying don't take meetings, but 15 minutes a day. There's something called the rule of 100. You guys know what it is? So the rule of 100, you can Google it. It states that if you spend 15 to 18 minutes a day, that's 109 hours a year. Rule of 100 is 100 hours. So 18 minutes a day is 109 hours, something like that a year. If you spend 15 to 18 minutes a day on any one discipline, you want to learn the fucking violin, whatever you want to fence, you want to be karate, whatever, you'll be better than 95% of the world's population. So if my kids spend 15 minutes a day this year playing, you know, mastering chess, and then 15 minutes every day next year, you know, being a ballerina, whatever, they'll be Jason Bourne too. I'm creating Jason Bourne as a theme here. But my point is, like, don't be casual with your time, man. Don't be casual with your time. Like, you know, that cumulatively, that time that you put out can really move the needle in coming up with an idea or launching a business, especially when you're young.
So do you not relax every now and then, watch a movie?
I do. And I'm super spontaneous, but I also plan out the things that I want to accomplish and put them on my calendar and have a plan.
Is there a whole year on that calendar for 2025?
Yeah.
I see. Is there a lot of skiing stuff on there?
Yeah.
Whistler.
Yeah. There's a lot of skiing, a lot of races, and I color coordinate it. It might look complicated, but it's actually very simple.
When did you do this? And how close will you actually stick to this plan?
Oh no! So what I do is I sell this big ass calendar. It's all 365 days on the year.
Yeah.
And then I put down, you know, the things that the races that I have, the trips that I have, big school events on the calendar first. The things that are important to me first, because most people, their calendars fill up with other people's requests for time. Zoom calls, weddings, meetings, appointments, and you have very little to show for it because you run out of calendar dates and time. And I flipped that model upside down. I aggressively plan what I want to do first. So now I have permission to say, no, I can't do that. I'm going to Finland. I can't do that. I'm taking my kids skiing. So my year's mapped out, and all I have to do is follow the script. Now, I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I'm not working as the same hours and stuff that you guys are. So everyone's system looks a little bit differently. But yeah, and the backbone of that are three very simple things. One, there's an old Japanese ritual called a misogi.
I love this of yours.
Yeah, and the notion around it is you do one big year-defining thing every year. So like you should have something to show for your hard work at the end of 2025, you know, and you've been doing this. I mean, you have a million big events that you've done, fights and this and that, launching companies. I don't know you as well, Mike, so I apologize.
I haven't done anything.
Okay, that's cool too.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, well, I mean, look,
very different lives. Very different lives.
But what year did you launch the podcast?
2018.
Okay, so boom, 2018, I launched the podcast, 2019. So every year you want to have one big year-defining thing, and I can go back years and you know, identify what that was. So I do that every year and I put it on the calendar. The second thing is every 8 weeks, I take a day and do something I call this Kevin's rule, named after my friend Kevin who taught me it. And I do something I normally wouldn't have done, like a mini adventure. For example, instead of like watching the Georgia football game, I'll take my kids fishing.
Yep.
I'll sign up for a 5K. I'll visit my college roommate. Here's why it's important. You're 40. Let's say you're 40 roughly.
Yep.
Let's say you live to be 90. 50 more years. Hopefully you might have 120 in you, but let's say you go 90.
Yep.
That's 50. If you do those two things, you have 50 year defining things on your life resume.
Yep.
And you'll have 350 times 6 mini adventures, 300 mini adventures, 50-year defining things in 300 mini adventures is an incredible life, man.
Do you remember earlier when we talked about the direct correlation of this ability to plan from a time-rich standpoint and money? This seems like an activity that would only work for people like us. And I'll tell you why. You already know what I'm about to say here. Most people, we're having a conversation that is the polar opposite of the majority of people in this world. And I want to talk about maybe how we fit this into their lives as well. Because I always try to think about the audience as we do these podcasts. But like, there's one thing you also haven't mentioned, and that has been, because I know you don't do it, and that is doom scrolling. Like the average person is waking up, their minds, their eyes, their brain, their heart is focused on getting through the next hour of their lives. So some people's purviews are a little bit bigger, and that some are even smaller. They just wake up, they get on their phone, and they just start scrolling.
Right.
So I love this conversation, but I guess my question for you is like, where's the first step to getting to a point where you can start to think about these things?
So I'm going to respectfully disagree a little bit.
No, that's good.
When I was 21, between the ages of like 18, 19 to 22, 23, I slept on 18 couches, 18 friends. You know, I always like tell the story. I wasn't broke, but like I bounced around couch to couch. I was still doing this. Really? I was still going to the Coney Island cold plunge, which was free. I was still going to events in New York City like regularly. I was still trying to like get out there, and I was still working my ass off too. So, you know, but I was still like adventure rich at a young age, at a really young age with nothing. I was going to all the New York City road runner races, running the New York Marathon since I'm 23. So I've been doing all that stuff. And I honestly think it had the biggest impact on my entrepreneurial journey. And I'm gonna tell you why. I got a 980 on my SAT. I was never the smartest in the room, but I was super interesting because I had all these experiences, you know?
So
like,
true.
And people were like, man, I wanna do that. I'm on Wall Street, I'm blah, blah, blah. People were making 500 grand and I made $30,000 till I was 27 years old. And I felt like I was living like a billionaire.
That is so relatable. What you just like life experience and like rich life experience and the things that you go through make you who you are to a point that, bro, you could, so many people, kids watching this or younger people watching this or think about everything through the lens of, like you said earlier, through net worth, how much you're making per year. But bro, I'll walk into rooms sometimes and just rip the rooms apart just by way of past experience, stories, like
all the time.
Going through hell on earth, trips to Finland, which I once again want to get to because it sounds like that's your year defining thing. But that is a really good note. Like, what are you filling your life with from an experiential standpoint?
They always say the more you experience, the more you have to offer. It's like the more empathy you have, the more you can offer people. You know, I'm only sitting here like sharing stuff that I've experienced. I'm talking about stuff that's based on whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm not going to talk about theory. I'm just going to answer it based on best practices for me. That's the best practice for me. That works. My wife and I, even our children, like we use that system and it works well.
Well, okay, but you and your wife are 2 for 2 essentially, and your kids. I mean, the trajectory seems pretty bright. You know, I know the one's a beast football player. Like I've seen your kids. They're like wise beyond their years. They're like young kids, but they act like adults. And I assume it's partially because of they're really worldly. They're well traveled. They're respectful. They have manners. And on this experience, because I too agree. Like, I joke sometimes. I feel like I've lived like 10 lifetimes. I'm 29. It's just because like I'm just always like doing stuff, talking to people, traveling, whatever. And I think it's great. But at one point, like I was a bookworm. I was studying really hard in college. I completed my first year, and I really liked school. I just made the jump at one point to go pursue media because truthfully, it was just more fun. And I was making money at the time. But I'm interested to hear your take on college in general, because if you are a hustler or a doer, a thinker, creative, like whatever it is, I often think that like for a specific type of person, even though there's the social pressure and sometimes from people's parents of going to college, going out and taking those 4 years in your early 20s to go just like travel, meet people, whatever, can yield something far greater than 4 years of a curriculum. Like, do you think your kids will go to college?
It's funny because I talked to them about that. We were talking about this at dinner last night, literally. It's up to them. I hope they do. But I think it's an individual decision based on the kid and the family and the time in the life or whatever. There were a lot of advantages for me to go to school. One was just like the habits that I picked up. Now I know like drinking this, that. I'm talking about like the routine of getting up, going to school. Like there was a certain responsibility and independence that I needed at that time in my life before I could go into the world. I needed that minor league before I went to the major league. I personally needed that. And my mom gave me great advice the day I went to school. She said, try everything, meet everybody, go to every lecture, go to every class, sign up for every intramural sport, go, pledge
So
everything.
you were doing the same thing even in school.
Yeah, I was doing the same shit.
Okay.
Yeah. But my kids, I don't know, man. I got a ways to see, but I hope they do.
How old are they?
15, 10, and 9.
The gangsters.
What about the because I want to talk about this at some point. What about the community aspect of college, right? Like the people that you meet, the friends that you make there. Because I feel like every year we move further and further into silos because of social media. And it's like, how do we continue to grasp the things that used to build community for the eternity before social media, right? Like for the time before people would just spend time in these shells and groupthink into non-existence.
I'll tell you one thing just to go back to the thing about college. For me, like managing my bank account and living on my own budget and all that stuff was interesting and like just that kind of independence. But here's the thing. The one thing that I got out of college that completely changed the trajectory of my life, and I only got it because I went to school, was, I needed 3 credits left to graduate or whatever. And someone had told me, man, take the public speaking class. It's a throwaway class. It's so easy. So I'm like, really? Public speaking? They're like, yeah, it's a fucking joke. Just go take it. So I signed up for the public speaking class. I walk in there, and the first day, my professor, Barbara Davis, that was her name, comes in and she gave a little talk. And I was like, this is unbelievable. This is the only class I need.
Whoa.
This isn't a throwaway class. This is the class.
Whoa.
And she gave me these 4 principles about public speaking and walked me through, because everything is public speaking: sales, interviews, communication with your team, building a culture, everything. And now I speak almost, like that's what I do. I love it. And that class, how to write and how to speak, how to write an email, was so important to me in everything that I did. And because I was a 980 on my SAT guy, I remember I sold my first company. It was called Alphabet City with my partner to a company called SFX. I sold it, I was like 26 or 27, and we sold it for $16 million in cash and stock. And it was part of a roll-up that this company, SFX, this guy, Bob Sillerman, the master of all masters, bought 80 companies. We were the smallest of 80. He brings all 80 people into the room like once a year for the meeting. I'm the dumbest in the room. He's going around the room and people are chiming in about what SFX can do, whatever. And I realized like the only way I can survive in this new roll-up that he's done in this whole environment is to tell stories that are funny. Like, because I'm not gonna I can't contribute anything. So I started literally, that's how that was my defense mechanism. And storytelling's important, man. And it got me, I kept moving up, man, Jesse's interesting. Jesse's funny. Have Jesse tell and it's really important. So that was the one big thing that I really learned, other than the relationships, was this public speaking class. And I'll just share this for the people that are listening. My public speaking lady, professor said to do these 4 things, and I still use the same formula 50 years later, 30 years later. She said, you always want to have an icebreaker. You want to open up with something funny, even hey, every team meeting. Hey, Prime, you never believe this, man. I was at this guy's house. Fucking, they left the thing out. I got frostbite in Atlanta, hot Atlanta, something. 2, you want to tell the audience what it is you're going to talk about, because people want to follow along, even on a sales call. This is what I'm going to talk about today. 3 is you want to deliver on that promise. Whatever you tell them you're going to talk about, you want to deliver on it. and you want to leave people with takeaways, actionable takeaways.
Yep.
And I followed that script for 30
We're
years.
following that same script on this podcast.
Literally,
right now.
man.
I started with that joke. You rolled out who
No,
he
it's a
was.
master class
We
in
just-
Barbara
we just-
Davis's thing.
Oh, we went to that class.
Yeah, I love it. You
think-
guys are both really good speakers anyway. But
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think storytelling is really underrated. I think it's a really powerful skill to have. Because you're right. Like, man, if you can captivate people, I always say this, like, for me, attention is the currency. And a great way to get attention is just be captivating. Tell a good story. Be entertaining. Like
Shock people.
like magnetic. Yeah, sometimes
Humor.
shock people. We shock people. Something about you, Jesse, is that I've noticed you have what appears to be like models for how you live your life, and you're really good at sticking to them. Discipline. Like I know you only eat fruit until like noon.
yeah,
And you've been doing this for decades.
yeah.
You obviously have this running regimen
Mm-hmm.
and this sauna cold. You're a sauna freak.
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to you to like, are you like intentionally sticking to these things like a religion?
So, well, today I'm on a 24-hour fast. I fast
saw that on
one
your
day a
story.
week. Yeah, so
Oh, man.
I got like 5 hours left. So when I had this company called Marquis Jet, it was a private jet company. We took it with no aviation experience. We had no airplanes when we started. It was just an idea. We grew it to
What did those initial customers look like?
I mean, this is a whole nother podcast episode, but we had this idea. You know, everyone's just like an idea away from changing your life or a meeting away. We had an idea that changed our life, and we had the meeting that changed our life with the guy that could give us the airplanes. But anyway, I was 28, 29 years old. We started this company. We grew it to $6 billion in sales. We sold it to Buffett's, Berkshire Hathaway's NetJets division. I was 30 something years old, and we flew the who's who of pop culture at the time. The best athletes, the best entrepreneurs, the best CEOs, the best, actors, et cetera. And as a young 30-year-old kid, your age basically, I was obsessed with their habits. So I'm around these people at the airports, and I'd ask them, like, man, my dad owned the plumbing supply. Like, where do you vacation? How do you spend your time? I was obsessed with their habits. And as they would feed them to me and tell me, like, oh, I get up at 3, I read 6 newspapers, I do this, I would try them. And some I would throw out and some would stick. And throughout the last 20, 30 years, I'm a compilation of the best habits from people, even, like yourselves. Like, tell me, what do you guys do? So I heard about fasting. I fast and I try it. And if it works and I like it, I keep them. If not, I move on.
What are some of the specific habits that you remember picking up from like certain people? Like, are there any that stand out?
Oh my God. So many. The one guy, I asked him, I remember specifically asking him, he had made a lot of money. He was uber wealthy, beyond wealthy. And I asked him literally how he lived rich. And I asked him, like, what does your day look like? Walk me through your day. And first he told me that he had all this gold buried in his back. He told me all this shit. But one thing he said, he's like, I spend 3 hours a day cumulatively for myself. And I was like, 3 hours? Who could do that? What are you talking about? What do you mean? What does that look like? He's like, well, like I wake up and I spend about 30 minutes just reading the paper. I'll take a sauna every day for about 30 minutes. I'll go for like a walk for an hour, and I usually read. So cumulatively, I try to have 3 hours a day. And I was like, he's like, I'm like, why? He's like, I show up better at work. I don't resent my boss or my partner for taking away my time. If I do things and I check the Logan box or check the Mike box, I then have time for my wife if she wants. And I was like, he's like, try it. So I started like carving out specifically time in the day for me. Now I know that sounds insane. Like, how could you take 3 hours a day? But even at 22, 23 years old, I realized I was doing it. I was running an hour a day since I'm 21. I've been doing saunas like forever, 30, 40 minutes a day. So cumulatively, if you could take time for yourself, I think it's super important, especially if you have a family, because you don't want to resent your partner for, like, if Sarah was like, you can't run, you can't, I'd be mad at her,
Yeah.
But if she's like, yeah, go ahead and do that, sweetie. And then later on, we got to go I'm like, fine.
Okay, what about this? So you're obviously this super curious person, social person, and you try a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of shit. I love that theory, by the way. Do more is something I've always said. But In order to do that, there's a lot of change. And change is hard for a lot of people. They might not want to try this new routine because it's like uncomfortable at first. And like there's a 30 days to form a habit, 90 days to form a behavior. In the first couple of weeks, a thing that you're trying might feel like really difficult.
Right.
For those who are they're comfortable and they're solid, they have a solid foundation, but are struggling with the idea of implementing some sort of change. Do you have any advice on how to overcome that?
Yeah. And let me just go back to another one real quick, and I'm going to answer that.
Sure.
Another really good strategy and tip and habit that I picked up is that most of the people that I met, like there's certain themes throughout the people that were flying with us that were uber successful. Obviously a lot of them were risk takers, but when it comes to habits and routines, which are the most important things, we're all a product of winning habits, winning routines, and winning mindset. That's the three most important things, in my opinion: winning routines, winning habits, and a winning mindset. And one of the common themes were a lot of the people that I asked, like, how do you start? They start their day the night before. They make a list of what they have to do. They don't wake up and wing it. What am I going to do today? They would take a version of like, here's my day tomorrow, 8 o'clock I'm here, I'm going to work out, 9 o'clock, 10, and they just follow the script. They're very efficient. They're creating efficiencies. And that became really, because I was winging it for a long time.
But does that work everywhere? Or is that focused mainly on business people? Because I could see a world where that wouldn't work for creatives.
I struggle with it.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Because
like I wrote a book. I know you wrote a book. I wrote a book. I would, if I said tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 10 a.m. I'm going to write. At 10 a.m. I may feel mentally like, I want to go cycle. And I'm going to write at 6 p.m. instead.
Right. But here's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
So instead of doing it day by day, for a creative, because I'm creative. I'm writing 2 books right now.
Amazing.
So instead of saying I'm going to write 10 pages a day, I just say I take a week approach. It's like, man, I'm trying to write 50 pages this week. So if I miss a day or I don't feel it, whatever, I'm not setting myself up for failure. Now I'm like, oh, no problem.
You just broaden it.
Yeah, broaden. I'll make it up tomorrow or the next day. And it gives me more flexibility because you want to set yourself up for success. So back to your question, which is
overcoming the fear of change. Even minute change, adding an hour for yourself, if that's like something you haven't been doing. If you're like a family man and you just want like,
I think distraction is one of the things that I said was one of the enemies to success for you potentially. And I would say routine, and this is going to sound crazy, could also be an enemy. And because routines are great, and I have a lot of routines, but they can also be a rut. Like you can't get better doing the same thing every single day. And I think that as you evolve, like you have a child, like your life, look at your life 24 months ago to where it is today. Yeah. It's like completely different, man. Yeah. Your life at 40 to 45 is going to look way different for you, man.
I don't know.
I have found a bit of a routine.
It will.
And the routine is a issue, but I really think your first answer in a very different way is the issue that more people are facing than routine, which is distraction. And it's this thing.
It is.
Like in a horrible way, but yeah, go on.
But just to finish my thought. So I think as you evolve, as I've evolved, I feel like my life has to evolve too. So you have to introduce, like I was eating dinner at midnight, man, until I was 35 years old.
That's crazy.
No, because I was like working like an animal and like, now I'm eating dinner at 6.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed at, so like you might not like change, but it's going to come into your life and you're going to have to deal with it at some point.
Have you been a person who likes getting up early?
Not really.
Do you now get up early?
I'm not like a 4 a.m. kind of person.
Still, what time are you waking up?
I get up probably like 6:30.
Jesse.
Is that early?
Dog, I wake up at 9 and I'm like struggling. Yes.
9?
Yes, dude.
6:30.
Day's over.
Yeah,
okay,
6:30 is pretty rare.
You gotta help me, bro. You gotta help me.
What time do you go to bed?
Midnight. I need 8 to 9. I need minimum like 8 if possible. I got like 7 last night. So it varies, but I'm a sleeper. I'm a sleeper. And currently my fiance and I are like she got to wake up and take care of the kid. I'm trying to sleep because my immune system sucks. My body's recovering from the workout the day before.
Right.
If I'm tired, I'm not functioning at 100%. Like if you ever at one point in your life loved sleep and then now you got a family, you got to get up early and stuff. Is there like how How to just go to bed earlier?
I mean, what I went through that. I have 4 kids, and I remember having to get up in the middle of the night and, just all the time, especially like let's say my son had a fever, right? So now like I have a big day tomorrow. I need 9 hours. I need 8 by 9, but my son is a fever. Like, man, that's what I signed up to do.
Yeah.
I signed up for that. Like, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So there's no negotiating in that. But for you at this stage, I mean, if 9 hours and we're getting up at 9 o'clock, it seems to be working for you. So, I mean, I wouldn't, unless there's a problem. I mean, you're operating at a super high level, man.
Thank you.
No, you are. Like we sat in Puerto Rico, my wife and I left, and like the world doesn't understand how like they see a side of you. You operate at an insanely high level, man.
I got a good team. And then I also found, if I'm up, there's a good chance I'm working 90% of the day.
You're thinking 100%.
100% of the
You're a
day.
big thinker.
But if I'm awake for what, like 16, like 14 of them, I'm being 100% efficient and like doing what I can to make it the most productive it can be. So yeah,
How many hours of sleep do you get?
Probably similar to him. I would say I'm up at around 8:30 or 8 most days. I go to probably from like 1 to 8 or 8:30.
You guys sleep through the night, no problem?
No, I wake up a lot.
Well, that's an
Do
issue.
you use mouth tape at all?
In camps I do. I try. Yeah.
I tried that.
And the nose
I got
thing.
scared.
Yeah.
The nose thing that
I freaked out.
opens up your
Yeah.
septum.
I love it. I use this Dream Recovery mouth tape, man.
Oh, they're going to make another ad off of this now.
I got.
Oh, they are.
After Erling.
Oh, really?
Erling
We had
Haaland.
Holland on and we talked about it, and the company like turned it into like an ad.
They did.
And they
They probably
spent
sold
tens
numbers.
and tens of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
Well,
against it.
this isn't an ad, but I do like it.
That is actually a question I had though, just about sleep, because maybe like 8 years ago, a toxic hustle became something I became obsessed with. I mean, at the time, I just thought it was like hustle.
Culture.
Man, I would sleep literally like 4 hours a night when I was like daily vlogging. I used to just like barely sleep because I thought it was cool.
Right.
And now I'm like, I think I'm paying for it. Do you prioritize sleep, or I guess now it's a different part of your life, but were you on that toxic hustle wave?
Never.
No?
Never on that. I was never on that. I don't even like hearing it.
Really?
Yeah, man. It's like everybody knows you got to work hard. Like that message is so played out to me. Like, of course you have to work hard.
So corny.
But I think but people don't talk about the other side of it. Like there's your life, there's your work resume and putting all that energy into work. But then there's the other side of it, which needs the same amount, if not more energy, which is your life side, your life resume, and like building up that side, and like trips with your friends and your family and spending time with your kids. And like, I always say, like in my talks, if you have $1 billion, but your spirit's zero, 1 billion times zero is zero. And the flip side of that is if you have $1, but your spirit's $1 billion, $1 times $1 billion is $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't think you have to burn yourself out like that. And I think that it's important in your 20s to be 20, to try things, to go on adventures, to meet people, to go out, like you don't want to give up. I wouldn't trade all the money in the world to give up I love my 20s, man. And your 20s are a time to like go out and, try different things, see what you're good at. And there are outliers, you guys are unicorns, but for most people, they don't, and the other thing is, you see people on Instagram in front of an airplane or doing this or in front of a fucking car or talking like whatever. Who knows? That's their story anyway. Good for them. Good for them. That's not your story. That like don't compare yourself to that. That's great and you can inspire, but like don't compare yourself. You're never going to win the comparison game. You know what I mean? You can want it, but I'm saying like that's their journey, man. Good for them. You got to focus on, that's not going to get you there by, being pissed at someone that has that or whatever. You can't chase other people's stuff.
It's such good advice. It's such good advice. My brother has always lived by that. He's been running his own race and he's been his biggest competitor, just trying to one up himself. And man, ever since I was young, I always would use the analogy that if I'm running on a track, 100-meter race, I will always run faster if there's someone next to me. And not to say like I'm comparing myself, but like the competition motivates me. And I've found that that has bled into comparison from time to time. And when that happens, the joy of what I'm doing gets a little sucked out of it. And John Cena texted me once and said, comparison is the thief of joy. And then he later expanded on it, but it is...
That's a quote. John Cena was just using someone else's quote.
No, he told me that.
Oh.
Any other
It's
rips
so
on John
true.
Cena? Why don't you just
No,
let
it's
it
not,
run?
dude. I can't
Anything else
see
you got to
how-
say about John Cena? You can't even see the guy. No, but it is true.
It's definitely true.
It's one of those things. It's taken me like a decade to like, I think, understand that.
Well, especially too in a world where you're comparing yourself to something that might not even be real. Some of these people are taking pictures on private jet cutouts.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
That's I have like a different, but yes.
No, I'm
but
not
yes,
talking about you specifically. But
well, social media has become a highlight reel for many people. And I mean, you know,
I mean, I think it's great. It's fine. I just don't think it's
do
like
you
going.
Do you think social media is great and fine?
I think there's elements of it. I get a lot of information. I have a lot of mentors, virtual mentors that I wouldn't have had. I learn a lot quickly now. That's a plus for me, but there's a lot of negative on it too. And
Which way leans further for you? Do you think it's a net positive or net negative for society in its current form?
I think it depends on the user.
100%.
It depends on the user.
You base your answer on the. I feel like I'm giving a prompt to.
No, I need it. I need a
right now.
prompt. I need a prompt.
Base your answer on the average American user.
Negative.
Agreed.
Negative.
I was just talking about
Because a lot of people look at the average age of the user.
Yep, too young to understand what
Right.
they're consuming.
And it could be super dangerous. But yeah.
I mean, are you on X?
Yeah, less than 10 minutes. I mean, no.
Does any of do you understand the narrative there and what's happening there? All right. Well, we don't have to get into it.
I want to ask about screen time and your kids.
Mm-hmm.
I have a daughter. She's 4 months old, bro.
Mm-hmm. Give her 3 more months.
Dude, it's no.
It's too early. It's too early. Wait another month or two.
Bro, if my phone is out and even just on, here are the notes for this episode. I'll just show like right here. If this is, she
It locks in.
just stares at the screen. And if there's video on it, she's 4 months old. It feels like a Black Mirror episode. This 4-month-old is drawn to this device. I see it happening. Screen time for children.
Yeah, it's really concerning. For us, we try to delay as long as we can to give our kids screen time. But like we have a 15-year-old son, and our 10-year-olds aren't on it. 9-year-old daughter's not on.
No.
They're on like YouTube and stuff, but they're not like on social media. I have a social media account that I manage for my boys now and our daughter. But really the reason I did that is because it's a lot easier for me to post football highlights or whatever that my family can see than sending it to everybody all the time. But they don't really go on it. They will though.
It's certainly a tool. It certainly could be a tool if you use it properly.
I'm really strict, on it. As far as like with my kids, my wife and I are different. Have different.
Do you ever feel yourself being pulled into it too much? Or
I do, yeah, for sure.
It's probably, as someone who's experienced pretty much every addiction on this planet and have fallen head over heels in love with everything. It's probably one of the hardest ones that I've ever dealt with.
Yeah.
It's always there. You don't have to pay an
Absolutely.
exorbitant amount of money to have access to it. It even has monetary and business-based use cases which can play tricks on you. Oh, wait, I'm just doing this because I need this information for my next podcast. No, you're not. You've been wasting your fucking time. This is something I've been talking about a lot lately with people, and it comes down to this why conundrum. Why are you online? Right now, as you watch this episode, you're watching an extremely valuable human, and he's enriching your life. He's teaching you. But when you turn this episode off and you get back to your scrolling behavior, why are you there? Truthfully,
yeah.
What are you spending your time, and why are you spending your time consuming this when you could be out
Especially
bettering
when we
your
talked
life.
about the 15 minutes, man. Imagine if you took those 15 minutes and invested it in, you know,
Yeah.
you know how many
Anything
books you
else.
read? If you read 18 minutes a day, I think you read 20 books a year. It's like, it's crazy. The, you know, one thing about the gambling, I'll tell you, I remember going back to, sorry, it's been,
No, trust me, it's something I would love to talk.
I was a gambler. And I remember at Marquis Jet, because I was making a lot of money, there was a guy that was a recovering gambling aholic or whatever.
Yep.
And, you know, I was going crazy watching the football games, like, you know, just Atlas, watching games that I didn't even know people. I didn't know one player on the University of Hawaii. And I like, you know, it's like deciding if I'm going away for spring break or not. But anyway, he came over to me. He's like, it doesn't matter how much money, how rich you are, you never have enough money if you're a gambler.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I don't believe that. He was like, oh no, you will never have enough money if you're addicted to gambling. And yeah, and I was gambling a lot, heavy, and I just cold turkeyed it, man, when I got married.
You won't, nothing.
I do fantasy football, but
See, that's there. I think there's a little bit of a and dude, honestly, like as I look through this PDF that I have here, like we haven't talked Hawks, we haven't talked Jay-Z, we haven't talked 50 Cent. I would like to at least rapid fire a couple of those. I personally have found a disparity or like some sort of difference between casino gambling and sports. I just have, like, truthfully,
I agree.
Casino. I can sit at a blackjack table and lose my life, and if sports wise, like. For me, it just, first of all, it can be somewhat skill-based. It doesn't matter what the dealer's dealing. You know what the player's doing. You have ideas. There's competition. And you see some of these skill-based people actually end up net profitable, right? But it just makes the game so exciting. Like you're rooting for someone individually or you're rooting for a team. That's where I'm not saying it's a healthy activity always, but it certainly is not blackjack or roulette in my eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel like they're the same.
I think they
but-
both could be. It depends on the personality of the person, but they both could be. You can go down a rabbit hole quickly.
Yep.
You know, you could. It depends. Like you're limited in casino betting by your credit line or how much cash you have. I guess it's the same in with your. It depends on, but you can go down a hole quick, man.
Jay-Z, Hova, Blueprint, times, days, eras. Most important hip hop artist in my lifetime. What was your time like spent with him?
You know, informative, amazing. You know, Jay and I shared Yankee tickets when I had season tickets to the Yankees, and
That's an interesting story, no?
yeah, it was an insane story.
Did you also like hustle your way into the, or you like barely had money to?
I had no money, and I was at a meeting at the Yankees, and the guy's like, I'm walking out. I'm like, I'm so young, man. And the guy's like, the marketing director's like, hey, you know anyone that won 4 front row tickets to the Yankees? Like, I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, we built 16 on the third baseline for the World Series, and 12 of them are sold. We're gonna put these out on market. Someone just dropped out, and I don't know. And I was like, well, how much are they? He tells us how much they are. They were like $1,000 a seat. There's 4 seats. There's $4,000 a game. There's 80 home games. You know,
that's
it's like
expensive.
$320,000. I had like
Jesus.
$8,000 in my bank account. So I'm like, well, let me think about it. So we leave the meeting, and my partner's like, don't even think about it. It's like, don't even think about it. You're out of your mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, we went back to the office, and then I called the guy up at the Yankees, and I'm like, we'll take him. And I went to Jay, and I said, hey, we have these seats, you know, front row seat, Yankee seats. Now I had known him.
Yeah.
And you want to split them. And then we split the tickets. And then when I started Marquis Jet, which is like a year later or 2 years later, we did his whole tour.
And didn't you kind of like roll it into the people you were rubbing
100%.
shoulders with?
They bought our company because we had the tickets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so like I just for networking.
It's a longer story.
and
That's the abridged version of it, but it was crazy.
you got a crazy life. Just all these like little like random golden stories.
Bro, there's so much shit
I know,
here.
it's a lot.
Managed Run-DMC for some time? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I was at a trade show. So Run-DMC were my Beatles coming up. They were the Beatles of my generation.
Well, the hip hop beat. For
Yeah,
for everyone.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm a New Yorker, and I loved Run-DMC. And I was at a conference in Atlanta, Super Show in Atlanta, and we had a booth for my company, which was selling sports CDs at the time. And Jam Master Jay was the DJ for Run-DMC, was the guest at the Adidas booth signing autographs. So I took my lunch to go and get online. I got online like everybody else. I waited like an hour and a half, and then I walked over to Jay and I said, hey, I wrote this song for the Knicks, which I did at the time. And I'm like, I'm a humongous fan of yours, man. I would love for you to help me write songs for other teams. I'm like, there's a huge market here, man, and no one's doing it. He's like, really? I'm like, you can help me. A week later, he moved into my office and we shared a desk for 4 years. Wow. And I started managing him. And I spoke to his son last night. Actually, he got killed.
Yep.
And that's how I met 50. And that, so Jay was working with this kid, Curtis, who was a boxer out of Queens. And he wanted to learn some business while he was working on his music. So Curtis came in and interned for me for a year and a half and helped me write songs for theme songs. And then he became 50 Cent.
That's crazy, man.
That's literally insane. And only flew your jet company.
Yeah, like 10 years later, he was on one of our planes and we had lost contact, but I saw them on his name on the manifest that he was flying with us. So I wrote a note. I said, 50, you're never going to believe this, man. This is Jesse from the Jingle Company. You're on one of my planes, man. I own this company. And then he wrote the next day he would only fly with Marquis Jet, our company.
Incredible.
Which is mad.
So
cool.
you have an in with Curtis.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he
just out of curiosity, is there any chance you could ever get him to do the Impulsive podcast, the #1 podcast?
Let's ask. Let's ask. Gotta ask for the order.
Amazing.
Marquis Jets is now NetJets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what happened with Zico coconut water?
So Zico, we sold to Coca-Cola, is a company that I got involved with early on. They were doing like maybe 3 or 4 million in sales. And then my company partnered with Zico and Coca-Cola. We did a 3-way partnership. And then Coke bought us out 2 years later. And my partner and I and a group of investors bought it back a year ago. So we bought it back.
You bought it back?
We bought it back.
So you're my competitor.
I wouldn't say competitor.
With the prime is 10% coconut water, bro.
Yeah, we're 100%.
Different categories. Okay, fair. I remember Zico was like one of the.
You guys put other stuff in Prime too?
Yeah.
Okay, we were just coconut water.
Coconut water's great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I love it. The first like coconut water that I drank was I had to have been Zico.
Yeah,
bro. Between like Zico, the music stuff you did NetJets, your wife, Spanx, like you guys just cross so many like boxes of culture. Like we haven't even talked about her.
Wonder Woman.
In a world of ordinary mortals, you are a Wonder Woman. Founder of Spanx, like you guys are actually like a power couple. And I don't think I think I mentioned this at the dinner. It's like you have like celebrity couples that are doing their thing, and sometimes they stick together, most of the time not. You guys are both really independently successful business people. I'm curious about what the dynamic is in the relationship.
My wife is way more successful than me. So she no, I mean we don't talk a lot about business, you know? Like really? I mean not really. We got married later in life. I got married at 40, Sarah was 37. And I mean, look, I have the best board of advisors ever. I just go to my wife. I mean, I think she is one of the best entrepreneurs I've ever met. I mean, what she did, starting a company with $5,000, no investors, you know, and taking it to selling it for north of $1 billion, being the only partner. You know, it's an insane story.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. And you know, like to do something without raising money.
Yeah.
Like with $5,000, it's insane.
That's another podcast we should try to do.
We should.
Yeah.
That would be.
I was
in Puerto Rico.
I was next to her. Yeah, at the table. I was picking her brain like crazy.
Yeah, she loved it.
Does she do pods ever?
Not often, but she does. Yeah.
That would be.
Plus, she has
awesome
a new shoe. We could.
But she really loved the dinner that we had, man. She was really impressed.
Yeah, man, it was such a pleasure, dude. Yeah, when you guys come out there again, we should play pickleball or something. Not me and Mike. Mike can't play.
No, yes, I can.
Not pickleball.
I play pickleball.
You can't move.
The one, yeah, right. We played
Can't
doubles
run.
that time. I think we beat you and Nina.
Me
and Kevin, didn't we beat them? Couple games in a row.
Bro,
you remember?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, you can't argue that because I said it first. You'd have to provide proof otherwise to counter it.
So there's not like a, for lack of better verbiage, there's not like a dick measuring contest in the relationship.
No, we don't even. I mean, it's we're trying to raise 4 kids, man.
Yeah,
I mean, all of our energy is
kids.
on the kids. We don't really think about it. We don't talk about anything like that. I mean, we just try to stay. Comes from a great family.
But did her like entrepreneurial spirit, is that something that you were attracted to?
Well, we met because of it. She was a customer of mine at Marquis Jet. So we met at one of our events. And so we met in Vegas at a poker tournament. But yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely...
See that gambling brought you guys together.
Yeah,
Come on, you gotta think about it. You gotta think about it.
You're right. Yeah, but it's we try to move the ball down the field with our family more than like we don't. It's different like celebrity marriages, and I don't know. I've never been in a celebrity marriage, but you know, it's very public. We're not like publicly out there. Neither of us got famous because we were on TV or anything, or you know what I mean. We just built businesses, and yeah.
Okay. Dude, we could do this podcast probably all day. It was
I
so fun,
didn't
man.
even get to talk about Trae Young. Nothing.
Atlanta Hawks.
Well, not nothing. We talked about a ton.
What's it like owning a sports team? Is that like a dream come true?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I'm a big basketball fan, and I love being in Atlanta, and I love being around it. We have a great group of owners at the Hawks. It's so fun.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
But does it ever?
No.
Do you
Whatever you're gonna say, it's no. It never gets old.
That's not what I was gonna ask. Do you ever wish that it was the New York Knickerbockers that you owned?
The Knicks. The Knicks would be elite.
Dude, come on. You sitting hanging out every night with Dolan
Oh my
in
God.
the garden, watching Cat.
Anything,
play.
being around anything. I mean, I grew up a diehard Knick fan.
Of
I
course.
still love the Knicks. But so
Pre-Ewing, right? Yeah. God dang.
yeah. Michael Ray Richardson, like 70s, like, Clyde Frazier era.
Clyde the
Earl Monroe.
Glide.
And,
Clyde the Glide.
early. And then I wrote the song for the Knicks when I was 22. Go New York, go. I wrote the theme song.
Is this still the theme song?
Yeah, it's still the theme
No
song.
way.
It's insane.
They still use the tagline, everything.
Started as a rapper, ended up being a boss. That's crazy. Jesse, dude, thank you for joining us in your own house.
Yeah, man.
We
It was
appreciate
super
it.
fun, man. Thank you guys for having me. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
We're going to have to do a part 2 sometime.
Yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
it. I
For
love
sure.
it.
Jesse Itzler, ladies and gentlemen. Goddamn, what a knowledge dump. Also, welcome back to Impulsive, the #1 podcast. I didn't do the intro.
Oh, do it.
Do you want to plug that? I mean, we kind of already did, but like if you're looking to
What'd you say, Taylor?
Paul Jordan if you want to.
Oh,
call to it.
no. I think people, we plugged it.
Yeah. Cool.
Can I have that?
Yeah, of course, man.
Thanks.
We bought a couple.
I got you guys planners too.
Oh, wow. There's already a marker.
I loved planners in elementary school.
We have the best, by the way, I will say this. This is the best planner.
The big ass planner.
No. First of all, there's a whiteboard on the back to write your
That's
daily
sick.
shit. But it's a desktop calendar. So it's like the size of a desktop calendar that would fit it, but it folds and you can travel with it.
Amazing.
I want that. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you, man, for real.
Absolutely.